If a three-legged dog growls and won't let your 6-year-old daughter out of his sight, you listen, especially when that dog used to charge into burning buildings to pull people out. At 9:42 a.m., on a scorching July morning in western Colorado, Harper Quinn sat cross-legged on her grandma's porch, reading the Jungle Book aloud to Blitz, her battered German Shepherd. The sun hadn't even hit its peak, but the heat shimmered off the dirt driveway like a warning. Blitz lay beside her, his sleek black and tan coat rising and falling in rhythm with her voice, his three legs tucked beneath him in perfect soldier-like form. His eyes, deep and unreadable, never left her. And Mowgli, she read, did not flinch even as the jungle closed in. Blitz gave a soft thump of his tail as if he approved. That's when the phone rang inside. Her grandmother, Miriam Quinn, stepped out a minute later, her lips pressed tight. She still wore her smock from morning chores, bits of hay clinging to her jeans, and her silver hair pulled into its usual no-nonsense bun. "That was your dad," she said. "Emergency at the reserve. A gate got left open. He's coming to get you." Harper's eyes lit up. "Really? You can visit, but only if you promise to follow his instructions." Miriam hesitated, then added, "And he said no animals. Not today." Harper's small hand instinctively went to Blitz's head. "Can he come with us?" "I don't think it's safe, honey. He's not whole." Harper didn't blink. "Blitz gets scared when I'm gone too long. He thinks I'm not coming back." Miriam sighed. She'd seen it for herself. Separation anxiety was a mild term for what Blitz went through when Harper wasn't near shredded doors, gnawed furniture, hours of pacing. "Well," Miriam said, "finally, he can come. But you two stay glued to your daddy. That park's a wild place on a normal day, and today ain't normal." Blitz thumped his tail, again almost like he understood. The Quinns lived on the edge of Grand Mesa Wildlife Reserve, 240 acres of wide-open landscapes and rewilded habitats where animals roam semi-free under controlled protection. Harper's father, Ethan Quinn, was the park's chief safety officer, a former Army medic turned wildlife specialist. He worked long shifts, kept to code, and didn't believe in letting your kid run wild, even if that kid was as strange and wonderful as Harper. By 10:15 a.m., his white pickup rolled into the drive dust trailing behind him. He stepped out, tall and lean, fatigue etched into his sun-darkened face. "Thanks, Mom," he said quickly, scooping Harper into the cab and giving Blitz a glance. "Glad you're coming too, buddy. Just don't eat anybody." The old K-9 lifted one ear unimpressed. The drive to the main facility was quiet except for the occasional crackle of Ethan's walkie-talkie. Still no visual on his Burmese. "Check sectors 6 through 9. Tranquilizer team is mobile." Harper tilted her head. "What's a Burmese?" Snake Ethan said, eyes still on the road. "Big one." Harper's face lit up with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Is it the kind that squeezes you?" "Exactly," her dad replied, not missing a beat. "That's why you'll stay in my office with Blitz and lock the door." "Got it?" She nodded, serious now. The facility loomed up ahead, a low-slung building of adobe and steel glass set between towering pines and dusty open paths. The parking lot was nearly empty, which meant staff were already deployed. Inside the office, it was cool and quiet, a sanctuary from the chaos. Ethan knelt to Harper's eye level. "Harper, look at me. You stay in here no matter what. Do not come outside. Blitz stays with you. Understand?" "I promise," she said. He kissed the top of her head and disappeared through the back exit walkie-talkie, buzzing in his hand. Harper sat on her dad's rolling chair, her legs swinging above the floor. Blitz lay at her feet, unmoving except for the occasional ear twitch. She found a set of colored pencils in the drawer and began sketching a tiger in a cage, then changed her mind and drew it free in a forest. From the desk, the walkie-talkie crackled. "Section 5 secure. Section 6 perimeter still open. Keep tranquilizers ready. Possible movement near drainage trench." She paused, pencil frozen mid-line. A few minutes passed, then, fwee, fwee, fwee. A high-pitched three-note whistle floated faintly through the air. It was her grandma's signal, the one she used when feeding animals back at home. Only it didn't sound right. It was off, wavering, broken. Harper froze. Blitz's head snapped up. He growled low. "That's Grandma," she whispered. The whistle came again, fainter. Then, a sharp, strangled cry, human, familiar. Blitz surged to his feet, barking once sharply. Harper stumbled to catch his leash, but her fingers hesitated on the doorknob. "I'm not supposed to leave," she told him. Blitz growled again, insistent. Another cry. "My system cry." This one unmistakable. Harper glanced at the walkie-talkie, but didn't grab it. She grabbed Blitz's leash instead. "We'll just look," she whispered. If it's nothing, we come right back. Outside, the reserve felt different. No sounds of school groups or tourists, no chirping tour guide radios, just heat-distant shouting and the occasional roar or bleating of a spooked animal. Blitz moved like a bullet, focused even with one leg missing. He guided Harper behind the back paddocks down a shaded service path lined with tire tracks and forgotten water bottles. Then Harper saw it. A figure collapsed near an overturned cart. "Grandma!" Miriam Quinn looked up, pain racking her face. "Harper, stop. Stop right there." Harper ran anyway. Miriam's ankle was twisted badly, her khakis torn. "It's here," she gasped. "The Burmese, it's close. You need to go back." Before Harper could reply, Blitz snarled a bone-deep guttural warning and turned to face the brush. The grass rippled. Something moved, and then they saw it. A shape long and thick, its body gliding in muscular silence toward the clearing. A glint of golden scales, and in its grip, something else. A dog, blonde, medium-sized, barely moving. "Sandy," Miriam breathed. "That's Sandy. She must have gotten loose." The retriever's eyes bulged in panic as the python's coils tightened. "No," Harper whispered. Blitz growled again, eyes locked. Harper turned to him. "No, Blitz. You're hurt. You can't." But he was already gone. If you're moved by stories like this about real courage, powerful bonds, and second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join our journey here on Heroes for Animals. Every story we share honors those who can't speak for themselves. Blitz lunged with speed Harper had never seen in him. He struck the snake's side, barking, biting, harassing. The python hissed and adjusted, loosening just enough for Sandy to gasp for air. "Go, Blitz," Harper yelled. "You can do it." Blitz was tactical. He moved in short bursts, using his missing leg to his advantage, pivoting harder than most dogs could. He was a ghost from his past life, a soldier again. But he misjudged. The python spun and struck, catching Blitz's back leg. In seconds, it coiled around him. "Blitz!" Harper screamed, racing toward the cart. Miriam's voice was hoarse. "Harper, look in the cart. Find the cattle prod." Harper's hands shook. Bandages, gloves, tools. There, a long rod with a black handle. She gripped it with both arms, the weight nearly pulling her down. She turned. Blitz was going still. His chest was wrapped tight, his eyes locked on hers. She ran. "I'm coming." "Blitz!" she cried, tears streaming. "Hold on." Harper's small sneakers pounded the dusty ground as she ran, gripping the heavy cattle prod like it was a sword. The Arizona sun beat down hard, turning the world into a blur of heat waves and terror. But none of that mattered because Blitz was in trouble. Just ahead, the python's powerful coils wrapped tighter and tighter around the German shepherd's chest. His front leg kicked out weakly, claws dragging a streak through the dirt. His breathing was labored, sharp and desperate. He didn't bark anymore. He couldn't. Harper could barely see through her tears, but she remembered what her father once said during a thunderstorm, when Blitz panicked from the noise. "When you're scared, find the thing you love and hold on tighter." She didn't stop running. "Blitz, hang on," she cried, voice cracking. "I'm right here." From her position on the ground, Miriam Quinn struggled to lift herself, pain radiating from her twisted ankle. "Harper, listen. You've got to hit the head. Aim for the head. Don't get too close." Harper didn't answer. Her heart pounded like a war drum as she circled around the python's bulk. The snake's eyes glinted as it caught her movement, but it didn't uncoil. "Let go of him," she said, tears streaking dust across her face. "Let go of my dog." She jabbed the prod forward, hesitated, and pressed the black button. A jolt of electricity crackled through the air as the prod made contact with the snake's gleaming scales. The python's body jerked violently. For half a second, it slackened just enough for Blitz to gasp a full breath. His eyes fluttered open, locking with Harper's. It wasn't enough. The snake recoiled, quickly hissing with primal fury. It reared its massive head and redoubled its coils, wrapping around Blitz's midsection again. The prod had bought seconds, nothing more. "Do it again, Harper," Miriam shouted. "Hold it longer this time." Harper gritted her teeth and lunged, her entire body shaking. She jammed the prod against the python's neck and held the button down until sparks flickered at the tip. The snake flailed its body, spasming wildly, and Blitz, battered and choking, rolled free. He hit the ground with a thud, coughing and wheezing, his tongue lolling out, eyes glazed but open. Blitz, Harper screamed, racing to his side. But Miriam's voice cut through the air with the sharpness of a whip. "Don't go near him yet. The snake's still dangerous." The python writhed, its body twitching as the electric shock faded. Slowly, with terrifying grace, it began to slither, in dazed but not down. Harper froze, the prod still gripped in her hand, her knuckles white. Then came a sound none of them expected. A bark. It wasn't Blitz. Across the clearing, the golden retriever Sandy had dragged herself upright. Her flank was scraped raw, and she trembled from head to tail. But she barked again, a short, sharp sound. The snake turned toward her, distracted. Harper's eyes widened. She's buying us time. Blitz, barely conscious, let out a weak growl and tried to stand. He managed to lift his head, then collapse again. Harper didn't hesitate. She gripped the cattle prod tighter and began circling the snake, remembering something else her father had told her: snakes can't see well behind them. That's your safest angle. She stepped softly, slow as a whisper, moving toward the back of the python's head. Easy now, Miriam coached, her voice tight with pain. Let it focus on Sandy. Don't let it see you coming. The python slithered toward the retriever, oblivious to the girl behind it. Harper adjusted her grip. The prod felt heavier than before, her arms burning from the weight, but she kept going. She thought of Blitz, his tail wagging, when she read to him, his muzzle resting on her lap during storms, his three-legged walk that never slowed him down. This is for Blitz, she whispered. She stabbed the prod into the base of the snake's head and slammed her thumb down. This time, the reaction was violent. The python convulsed its body, snapping in all directions. Its tail whipped past Harper's legs, nearly knocking her over. She stumbled back, heart in her throat. The snake crashed to the ground, its coils thrashing. And then stillness. It wasn't dead, but it wasn't moving either. Miriam exhaled, her hands shaking. Holy God, she muttered. She did it. Harper ran to Blitz, collapsing beside him. His breathing was shallow. Blood seeped from gashes along his ribs, and his hind leg hung at a strange angle. Grandma Harper sobbed. He's really hurt. Miriam crawled closer, biting back pain. Her eyes scanned Blitz with practiced calm. Broken ribs, she muttered. Legs fractured. Breathings rattled. He might have a punctured lung. Sandy limped over, nosing at Blitz. She let out a soft whimper and laid her head against his, a silent gesture of thanks. Harper looked around. We need help. I had a radio, Miriam said, but it got smashed when I fell. You'll have to go back to the main building. Before Harper could move, a new sound rolled through the clearing. A growl, but not like Blitz's. This one was deeper, older, almost prehistoric. It rumbled through the dirt. Miriam paled. Don't move, she whispered. Stay still. Harper froze. Emerging from the far brush was a lion. Not a zoo lion, not one behind bars, but a free-roaming, wild, fully grown male. His golden mane rippled in the wind like something from a dream. His eyes scanned the scene. He wasn't alone. Behind him came more, two lionesses, and just beyond them, a pair of half-grown cubs. Harper didn't breathe. They got out, Miriam said, her voice barely a whisper. During the breach. The male lion stepped closer, his gaze fixed not on Harper or Blitz, but on the python. The snake had begun to twitch again. He's watching it, Harper said softly. The lion didn't growl. He simply sat, tail flicking, once behind him. The lionesses stayed close, one slightly smaller, with a distinctive notch in her left ear. Harper felt Blitz stir beside her. No, she said quietly, stroking his fur. Stay still. Don't provoke them. The notched ear lioness moved closer. Her posture was low and slow, curious, but cautious. Her amber eyes locked on Blitz. And then, unbelievably, she lay down, flat on the earth, head tilted, peaceful. What in the world? Miriam breathed. Harper looked back at the lioness, then at Blitz, then at the snake. She didn't understand. None of it made sense. That's when the shouting started. Lily, Mom, voices, men's boots hitting gravel. Ethan Quinn burst into the clearing with a tranquilizer rifle, raised, 3 rangers behind him. He froze. His mother was on the ground. His daughter was clutching their injured dog, and a pride of lions was calmly watching them all. Don't shoot, Harper yelled, standing protectively in front of Blitz. They're not hurting us. Ethan's rifle stayed aimed. Harper, come here. Slowly. She saved Blitz, Daddy. She fought the snake and the lions. They're not attacking. One of the rangers, an older man named Nolan, lowered his weapon slightly. That lioness, he said slowly. That's Luna, one of the rescued cubs. Ethan blinked. From the Wilkinson fire, Miriam's eyes widened. Max Blitz was the one who found them. Years ago. The lions didn't move. The male sat regally still, watching the python. The notched lioness Luna stared at Blitz with what could only be called recognition. Ethan lowered his rifle. Harper knelt again beside Blitz. We need to get him to the clinic, Daddy. Ethan nodded slowly. Let's move. Carefully. No sudden movements. They placed Blitz on a makeshift stretcher, his breathing shallow but steady. The lions didn't stop them. They simply watched. As they carried him away, Luna followed just for a few steps before returning to the Pride. Harper looked back, once her heart full of questions. They remember him, she said softly. The emergency doors of Grand Mesa Wildlife Clinic flew open just as the gurney carrying Blitz rolled through, escorted by a flurry of voices, urgency and adrenaline. Airways open but shallow. Multiple abrasions. We've got possible rib fractures. Chest trauma could be a punctured lung. Where's Dr. Morales? 6-year-old Harper Quinn jogged alongside the stretcher, gripping Blitz's paw like it was the last rope holding her together. Her dad, Ethan, tried to guide her away, but she shook her head fiercely. I'm staying with him. I have to. Behind them, Sandy, the golden retriever Blitz had saved, limped into the clinic on her own, following like a quiet shadow. Miriam Quinn Harper's grandmother had been helped into a wheelchair after being lifted from the park. Her ankle, twisted and swollen, was quickly wrapped by a nurse as she watched her granddaughter disappear behind the trauma doors with the dog that had saved them all. No one could believe what had just happened. And outside the glass windows of the clinic's recovery yard, the lion stood, not pacing, not roaring, just waiting. Inside the trauma suite, Blitz was surrounded by a team of vet techs and 2 attending veterinarians. Their movements crisp and synchronized. Electrodes were clipped to his chest. His blood pressure was dangerously low. One lung had collapsed under the pressure of the python's coils. His rear leg, the only one he had left on that side, was bent unnaturally, possibly fractured in 2 places. Sedation now, said Dr. Morales, her voice calm but clipped. Intubate. I want a chest tube prepped. Dr. Chen, get imaging stat. Blitz didn't cry. He didn't whimper. But his eyes found Harper's as they pushed the mask over his muzzle, and she leaned close to whisper, we're right here. You're not alone. Only when the anesthetics kicked in and his breathing evened out did Harper finally let her dad pull her away from the room. In the clinic's waiting area, the chaos hadn't died down. Staff members whispered about the pride of lions, sitting calmly outside, pressed close to the recovery yard's fence line like sentinels. No one had ever seen anything like it. They're not acting aggressive, one staffer murmured. They're just watching. And not the humans, added another. They're watching him, the dog. Back in the family waiting room, Harper curled up beside her grandmother, refusing the juice her dad brought or the stuffed panda someone had offered. I don't want juice. I want Blitz. Miriam reached over, brushing dust and ash from Harper's blonde hair. He's in good hands, sweetheart. If anyone can pull through this, it's that dog. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. What if he doesn't? For a long time, Miriam didn't speak. Then she said, I've worked with animals for 50 years. I've seen dogs come back from broken spines, wildfires, even frostbite. But I've never met one with a will like Blitz. He's got grit. Ethan sat nearby, rubbing his hands together anxiously. His mind wasn't just on Blitz. It was also stuck on the lions. How had they found Harper and Blitz in the middle of the reserve? Why didn't they attack? Why had they followed? And most baffling of all, why had they protected? Dr. Morales came in hours later, her scrubs stained and her eyes tired. He made it through surgery, she said, and the room let out a collective breath. We placed a chest tube to drain the air, his lungs reinflating. We stabilized the leg, though we'll need to go back in a few days to insert a plate. Harper shot up from the couch. Can I see him? Not yet, sweetie, the doctor said gently. He's still in ICU. Tubes machines. It might be scary. I don't care. He'll be scared without me. The vet hesitated. Then she turned to Ethan. She's not wrong. We're seeing evidence more and more that emotional bonds affect recovery. If she stays calm, it might help. They brought Harper into the ICU 20 minutes later, a small chair placed right beside Blitz's padded kennel. The sight of him nearly took her breath away, wrapped in bandages, a tube draining from his chest, machine softly beeping beside him. She reached through the bars and touched his paw again. Hi, buddy. It's me. I told you I'd stay. The beeping on the heart monitor softened slightly, his rate slowing to a more stable rhythm. One of the techs raised an eyebrow. That's not nothing. Outside, the lions hadn't moved. Security footage revealed that they hadn't broken free in the traditional sense. During the earlier gate breach, someone had left a maintenance access panel unlocked. The Pride had quietly exited and tracked Blitz across half the reserve. Director Travis, the park's administrator, stood at the rear observation window, looking out at the Pride lined up in the grass. The large male Magnus rested on his belly like a king overseeing his court. The lioness with the notched ear, Luna, remained closest to the fence, watching the building without blinking. It's like a damn vigil, someone whispered behind him. We're calling in a specialist, Travis muttered. Someone from the university. We need answers. But Miriam had already figured it out. Back in the waiting room, she was telling Ethan what Harper hadn't yet understood. It was him, she said softly. 3 years ago, the Wilkinson fire. You remember the one that nearly took the rehab center? Ethan nodded slowly. That was the day Blitz lost his leg. He didn't just lose it, she said. He gave it saving something. 3 years earlier, during the wildfire that devastated the southern ridge of the park, Blitz, still in active duty as a K-9 search and rescue dog, had been sent into the flames to locate trapped animals and staff. Most had evacuated, but a call came in over the radio. 3 lion cubs and their injured mother were unaccounted for. The fire was advancing fast. There wasn't time to search safely. Blitz didn't care. He went in once, came back with 1 cub. He went in, again brought back the second. On the 3rd trip, the building partially collapsed. Blitz had used his body to shield the final cub, a notched ear female, from falling debris. That's when the beam crushed his leg. He didn't bark or cry. He just lay there until the firefighters pulled him out. No one expected him to survive, but he did. And now 3 years later, those cubs were grown, and they remembered. Harper slept beside Blitz's kennel that night, curled under a fleece blanket brought from home. Nurses tiptoed around her. No one had the heart to wake her. Around 3 a.m., the tech on duty noticed something strange. One of the monitors tracking cortisol and stress indicators began to shift. Blitz's vitals were improving, faster than they should. The child's presence was having a measurable effect. But Morales returned early that morning, bleary-eyed but smiling faintly. I've never seen a case like this, she admitted. He should still be unconscious, but he's trying to wake up. Miriam in her wheelchair smiled knowingly. He wants to see her. Sure enough, by sunrise, Blitz opened his eyes. His head didn't move, but his eyes searched the room until they found Harper. His tail thumped once. Outside, the lioness Luna was still there, waiting. The early morning light spilled across the Grand Mesa Wildlife Clinic like honey, soft and golden, slipping through the tall pines and stretching long fingers over the recovery yard. And still the lions waited. No roaring, no pacing, just quiet, steady presence. The male Magnus sat like a statue in the morning sun, his golden mane glowing like embers. A few feet away, the notched ear lioness Luna was pressed as close as she could get to the wire fence, her amber eyes fixed on the wall of the ICU, as if she knew Blitz was inside. Inside the clinic, Blitz lay on his padded recovery bed, swaddled in bandages and soft blankets. A tube still drained fluid from his side, and his rear leg was stabilized in a makeshift splint until surgery could repair the fracture fully. His breathing was labored but stable. Harper Quinn hadn't left his side once. She sat now with one hand gently resting on his paw, her legs tucked up into the oversized recliner that had become her makeshift bed. Her blonde hair was tangled and slept on, her cheeks flushed with worry and exhaustion. He's awake, she whispered as the first nurse stepped in to check vitals. He keeps looking at me. The nurse smiled, keeping her voice low. He knows you're here. That's probably what's holding him steady. The monitors confirmed it. Blitz's vital signs had been unpredictable through the night, spiking whenever Harper left the room to use the restroom, dropping again when she returned. His heart rate calmed at the sound of her voice. His blood pressure stabilized when her hand touched his fur. He's tethered to her emotionally, Dr. Morales said quietly to the staff. If anyone questions the power of bonds between children and animals, they need to spend 5 minutes in this room. Out in the hallway, things weren't so peaceful. Director Travis had gathered a small team in the conference room. Ethologists, security officers, media liaisons, and legal counsel. They were gathered around a wall-mounted screen showing loop security footage of the Lion Pride entering the outer perimeter through an unlocked maintenance gate during the breach. They hadn't run. They hadn't hunted. They tracked Blitz. Do we have confirmation yet on their identities? Travis asked, adjusting his glasses. Yes, sir, said Dr. Patel, one of the zoo's animal behaviorists. The lioness with the notched ear is Luna, rescued as a cub during the Wilkinson fire. The large male is Magnus, the pride's dominant male. The others are her littermates and her 2 adolescent cubs. And you're telling me, Travis said slowly, that they're just here of their own will. They haven't shown any aggression. They're not even responding to the smell of prey animals in the vicinity. They're focused on the clinic, specifically the ICU wing. Someone else chimed in from the corner. I've worked in big cat rehab for 22 years. I've never seen anything like this. Dr. Patel turned the volume up on the video playback. The screen showed the moment the lions arrived in front of the fence the night before. No growls, no pacing. Luna had simply sat down and hadn't moved since. By mid-morning, a small crowd had gathered at the observation windows overlooking the recovery yard. Staffers rotated out quietly, taking turns observing what many were calling the vigil. One of the vet techs, Brandon, leaned in beside Miriam Quinn, who was bundled in a wheelchair with her ankle iced and elevated. "Did you know this could happen?" he asked, his voice hushed. Miriam chuckled. "Son, I've seen pigs outsmart fourth graders and raccoons pick padlocks. But no, I didn't expect this. Doesn't mean I'm surprised, though." "You think they really remember him?" She nodded. "I know they do. That lioness out there, Luna, she was one of the cubs Blitz dragged out of that burning shelter. He went back in 3 times, shielded her with his body on the third, lost his leg for it." Brandon let out a long, low whistle. "Animals remember," Miriam continued, eyes soft. "Not just fear, not just food. They remember kindness, too, especially when it hurts." Harper sat with Blitz while Dr. Morales gently adjusted his IV line and checked the drainage from his chest tube. She didn't flinch at the machines or the beeping or even the needle the doctor used to flush the line. She just kept her eyes on Blitz. "Will he walk again?" Harper asked. Dr. Morales considered the question. "We're hopeful. He's got a long road ahead, but if there's ever a dog with the heart to recover, it's him." Harper reached forward and stroked the top of Blitz's head. His eyes flicked toward her again, weak but alert. "I'll help him every step." At 11:20 a.m., a decision was made. The staff moved Blitz to a specially modified enclosure with a large viewing window. It was a corner room in the clinic with direct sight lines to the recovery yard outside. They hoped the natural light and quiet might help him rest. Harper moved her chair beside him once more. And it didn't take long. Within 20 minutes, Luna shifted for the first time in hours. She walked up to the fence, pressed her massive body against the metal, and stared straight into the window. Blitz saw her, and his tail moved. It wasn't much, just a small thump, but to everyone watching it felt like an earthquake. Luna chuffed softly, a low breathy sound lions make to greet their own. Blitz responded with a tired, soft whine. And just like that, something ancient and impossible settled into place. That afternoon, Travis called a press conference to address the public interest. News vans had begun to line up at the edge of the property, and social media was abuzz with rumors and cell phone clips from clinic employees. "This is not a stunt," Travis told the cameras. "This is not a training exercise. What we are witnessing is an unprompted voluntary return of a wild pride of lions to the dog who once saved their lives." Footage from the Wilkinson fire 3 years earlier had surfaced grainy clips of a younger Blitz, still strong and fast, limping back through smoke, carrying a lion cub by the scruff. Harper and Miriam watched from a side room, tears welling in their eyes. "You were right," Harper whispered. "They remember him." Miriam smiled. "That kind of love leaves a mark." As night fell again over the clinic, Harper lay in her recliner wrapped in a blanket, her hand resting on Blitz's shoulder. His breathing had improved, his vitals were stable, and outside the lions remained. The staff had decided to let them stay for now. A temporary fence was erected to give the lions safe space without panicking the public. Animal behaviorists rotated through the observation deck in shifts, taking notes, whispering theories. But no one really needed a scientific explanation. They just needed to look at Harper and Blitz. And Luna waiting. Near midnight, Harper stirred in her sleep. Blitz shifted slightly, his leg twitching, a soft rumble in his throat. The staff watched the monitor, heart rate up, not dangerously, but alert. He was dreaming. Harper woke up and moved closer. She whispered near his ear, "You're safe now, Blitz. They're still out there. They didn't forget." His paw twitched toward her hand. By the 5th day of Blitz's recovery, the story had spread far beyond the Colorado hills. News anchors in New York were covering it. Morning shows in Los Angeles were debating the ethics of lion memory. Even wildlife scientists from Europe and Australia were calling Grand Mesa Wildlife Reserve for interviews. But inside the small corner room of the veterinary clinic, where the air still smelled faintly of antiseptic and the quiet hum of machines filled the space, none of that mattered. Not to Harper Quinn. All she cared about was the dog in the bed beside her. Blitz was awake more now. He wasn't strong enough to just stand, but he lifted his head when she spoke, tracked her movements with tired but clear eyes, and responded with soft tail wags when she reached for his paw. Harper hadn't left him. Not once. "I'm going to read your favorite," she whispered that morning, sitting cross-legged on the recliner pulled close to Blitz's enclosure. She opened Where the Red Fern Grows, flipped to the chapter where the boy promises his dogs they'll always be a team. Blitz's eyes fluttered, his breathing slowed. See, I knew you'd remember this part. Outside, the lion pride remained. Park staff had cordoned off a wide protective perimeter around the recovery yard, creating a quiet space for the animals to remain undisturbed. The public was not allowed near the back gate, but that didn't stop the crowd from growing in at the reserve's main entrance, some holding signs of support, others with homemade drawings of the hero dog and the lions. Director Travis had finally relented and given a limited press tour of the observation deck. One by one, journalists stood in awed silence as they watched Luna, the notched-ear lioness, press close to the fence, her eyes locked on the clinic windows. They haven't moved more than 30 yards in days, Dr. Patel explained to a camera crew from 60 Minutes. They're not agitated. They're not looking to leave. They're waiting for what someone asked. For him, Dr. Patel said, they're waiting for Blitz. Back inside, Harper turned to her dad, Ethan, who had just brought her a peanut butter sandwich. Did they tell you yet? She asked. Tell me what about the footage from the fire. Ethan sat down across from her, resting his elbows on his knees. I saw it this morning. The footage uncovered from an old park archive showed Blitz just 3 years earlier, dashing through smoke and ash with a lion cub in his mouth. The building had partially collapsed. The team had assumed all the cubs had perished until Blitz reappeared, with the final one shielding her from debris with his own body. She had the same ear, Harper said softly. That little Nick. It's Luna. Ethan nodded. Yeah, it's her. He saved her life. He saved all their lives, Ethan replied. Now they're returning the favor. That evening, Dr. Morales gathered Harper and Ethan for a quiet conversation near Blitz's bed. We've scheduled the final surgery for tomorrow morning, she said gently. We'll be going in to set the fracture properly and repair the surrounding tissue. Harper looked up nervously. Will it hurt him? He'll be asleep, honey. But recovery's going to be tough. He'll need rehab, maybe months of it. I'll help, Harper said immediately. I'll be there every day. Morales smiled. We may actually need you. His vitals are better when you're nearby. You're basically a prescription. Harper grinned. Later that night, as the sky outside turned purple and the lights in the clinic dimmed, Director Travis entered the recovery room with an envelope in his hand. He looked slightly out of place in the medical wing, his button-down shirt tucked tight, clipboard under one arm. Miriam told me I'd find you two here, he said to Harper and Ethan. I won't stay long. He handed the envelope to Ethan. Inside was a letter from the Reserve's Board of Directors. They were offering Ethan a new position, Director of Wildlife Education and Outreach. A promotion, better hours, no more overnight emergencies, more time with Harper. More importantly, the letter outlined a proposal for a new educational exhibit. A center, one dedicated to Blitz. We're calling it the Blitz Pavilion, Travis explained. It'll highlight his service as a K-9 officer, his work during the fire, and of course this incredible story with the lions. We'd include video footage, digital displays, maybe even a theater exhibit. And Harper, Ethan asked cautiously. She'd have full approval over any materials involving her. We'll only proceed if you're both comfortable. Ethan looked at his daughter. She was quiet for a long moment. Would it help other kids? She asked finally. To learn about animals? Yes, Travis said gently. We believe it could teach people a lot. About kindness, memory, loyalty. Harper nodded. Okay, but only if Blitz gets his own statue. Everyone in the room laughed. Even Blitz, barely awake, let out a breathy huff. The next morning, just before surgery, Harper leaned down beside Blitz and whispered into his ear. You've got this, buddy. We'll be right here when you wake up. And when you're better, we'll go see Luna again. His eyes opened a little. She kissed his head. Be brave. The procedure took nearly 4 hours. Doctors stabilized the tibia, inserted a titanium plate, and reconnected soft tissue. They flushed the internal damage from the python's crush injuries and rewrapped the bandages around his ribs. Blitz remained stable throughout. When Harper was finally allowed in the recovery room, she sat beside him once more, holding his paw. You're halfway home, she whispered. Just a little more. That afternoon, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in over a week, Blitz stood. It wasn't graceful, it wasn't steady, but it was real. One leg lifted, then another. Then his whole weight, gently wobbling, leaned forward on 3 legs, his fourth now braced with a full support cast. The staff watched in silence as Harper stood beside him, holding out her hands for balance. You're doing it, she whispered. Blitz took 2 steps, then collapsed softly onto his blanket. But it was enough. The room erupted in quiet applause. Even Director Travis, watching from the doorframe, looked like he might cry. Outside, Luna stood up too. She walked slowly along the length of the fence, then lay back down in her usual spot. But now she was closer than ever, no more than 15 feet from the recovery room wall, as if she sensed something had changed. The next day, the board approved permanent funding for the Blitz Pavilion. Harper was offered the role of Junior Conservation Ambassador, a title she took very seriously, designing her own badge and asking if she could teach a class on how lions remember love. Within 48 hours, National Geographic requested exclusive rights to document the story. Ethan declined the first offer. "This isn't a show," he said firmly. "It's a lesson." By the 2-week mark, Blitz could walk a full 20 feet without assistance. He gained back 3 pounds. His wounds were healing. The staff removed the chest tube. His breathing returned to normal. And still the lions waited. Dr. Patel, now officially leading the behavioral study, addressed a group of students one morning outside the yard. "What we're witnessing isn't just animal memory. It's gratitude, recognition, and yes, emotion." "Can animals love?" a teenager asked. Dr. Patel smiled. "I think you already know the answer." That evening, as sunset colored the horizon in orange, and Rose Harper sat beside Blitz near the fence in a special mobile cart. Luna approached from the other side, and for the first time, Harper reached out her hand toward the wire. The lioness chuffed. Blitz lifted his head, weak but steady. 3 lives. 1 moment. 1 silent bond that spanned years, species, and pain. Spring arrived late that year in western Colorado, like a shy friend hesitant to rejoin the party. But when it did, the entire landscape of Grand Mesa Wildlife Reserve came alive. Wildflowers exploded across the open fields, birds filled the air with songs, and even the wind seemed to carry a gentler touch. By then, Blitz had become something of a local legend. Visitors to the newly opened Blitz Pavilion often stood in silent awe as they watched videos of the heroic dog limping through smoke-filled forests with lion cubs clinging to his back. Murals along the interior walls depicted the improbable bond between predator and protector. One corner of the exhibit was reserved for photos and drawings from children who had been inspired by the story, a section Harper proudly helped curate every weekend. And every now and then, when the weather was just right, Harper and Blitz would appear in person, not as performers, but as living proof of something quietly extraordinary. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Harper, now 7, and officially wearing her Junior Conservation Ambassador vest, led a group of school children through the outdoor viewing area just beyond the lion habitat. Blitz walked beside her, steady and determined, his hind legs still wrapped but weight-bearing now. He had developed a distinctive rhythm, thump slide, but no one minded. He moved with pride. Luna, the notched-ear lioness, often approached the edge of the enclosure when she saw Harper and Blitz arrive. The two would sit for long moments, eyes locked in a calm exchange of memory and understanding. Sometimes the other lions joined her. Sometimes they stayed back. But Luna always came. Inside the educational center, a new touchscreen display had been installed near the theater entrance. It allowed visitors to watch interviews with veterinarians, park rangers, and even scientists who'd studied the lion's behavior. But the most watched clip was simple. It showed Harper sitting beside Blitz on a sunny day, explaining what she believed really happened. "People say it's a miracle," she said into the camera, "but I think it's just love. Blitz saved Luna. She never forgot. And when he needed help, she came back." She paused, smiling. Animals remember love better than people do sometimes. Later that evening, Ethan stood on the back porch of their new home, sipping a cup of coffee while watching the sunset bleed over the mountains. Miriam rocked beside him, her ankle now fully healed, though she still used it as an excuse to avoid certain chores. Harper sat in the grass a few feet away, reading out loud to Blitz from a brand new book titled Braver Than the Storm, a story loosely inspired by his life. "You think he knows it's about him?" Ethan asked, smiling. Miriam smirked. "He's smarter than most mayors. Of course he knows." Blitz had come a long way in just 3 months. The titanium plate in his leg had integrated perfectly. His ribs were healed, his lungs strong. He'd regained nearly all the weight. He lost his coat full and shiny again. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was the way he carried himself. He was no longer just the retired canine dog with 3 legs. He was Blitz, the guardian of the wild, the protector of children, the friend of lions. And somehow he seemed to know it. That summer, a second smaller miracle happened. The lion pride, after nearly 40 days of remaining near the clinic, finally returned to their habitat deep within the reserve. They didn't sneak away. They walked. In full view of staff and cameras, Magnus led the group through the open corridor, stopping briefly near the gate to glance back. Luna lingered a few seconds longer. She turned toward the clinic's direction, gave one last soft chuff, and followed her family into the wilderness. I think they knew it was time, Harper told her grandma later that day. Miriam nodded. Animals know when their part of a story is done. Harper looked up. Do you think they'll come back? I think if Blitz ever needs them again, Miriam said, placing a hand on Harper's shoulder, they'll find a way. In early August, Grand Mesa Wildlife Reserve hosted its largest education day in history. Over 600 visitors showed up from across the region, families eager to learn more about interspecies, memory, emotional intelligence in animals, and of course, Blitz. Harper was given the honor of cutting the ribbon to officially open the cross-species memory garden, a peaceful trail lined with benches, quotes, and shaded spots where guests could reflect on the story. Each bench bore a plaque with the name of someone, human or animal, who had helped make the journey possible. One of them read, Blitz, for proving that love doesn't need words, only courage. Another said, Luna, for remembering what the world forgot. Harper stood between them, holding Blitz's leash gently in her hand, and turned toward the audience. My best friend has 3 legs, she said, but more heart than anything with 4. He saved a life lost, something in return, and then got it all back because someone he helped remembered. That's why we're here today. To remember kindness. The crowd stood in applause. Some cried. All were changed. That night, after the guests had gone home and the reserve returned to its peaceful silence, Harper sat on the porch steps next to Blitz watching the stars. Do you know how many people you helped? She whispered. Blitz shifted closer, resting his head against her knee. She stroked his fur gently. You're my hero. Forever. He let out a contented sigh, the kind only an old soul gives after a long, meaningful day. Weeks later, the story made national news again, this time not for its drama or danger, but for its impact. Animal rescue applications across Colorado had doubled. Schools began implementing programs on empathy and wildlife. And one little girl from Texas sent Harper a drawing of Blitz with angel wings and a cape folded inside a letter that simply said, he made me believe again. Back in the lion habitat, Luna gave birth to 2 healthy cubs in early fall. Veterinarians named them Hope and Valor. Harper insisted on sending Blitz's old collar, a worn leather strap with faded canine stitching, to hang in the observation center near Luna's den, just in case the cubs ever wanted to know about the dog who once saved their mom. On a crisp October afternoon, Harper and Blitz returned to the garden trail. No cameras, no reporters, just the 2 of them. They walked slowly, her hand on his back, pausing at each bench, reading every name. When they reached the last one, Harper took a deep breath and smiled. The final plaque read, Harper Quinn for believing in something bigger than fear. She looked down at Blitz. Guess we're both famous now. He wagged his tail once, slow and steady, and together they turned toward the setting sun. Thank you for joining us for the incredible story of Blitz and the Guardians of the Wild. We hope it moved you, made you believe in the power of loyalty, and reminded you of the unspoken bonds that make us human even when shared with animals. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had an animal in your life that changed everything? Tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more powerful real-life stories of courage, connection, and healing. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and never underestimate a 3-legged dog.